Hello friends, adventurers, and travelers. Heather here from Heather's Hikes and Adventures. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about something that continues to show up as one of the most popular topics, whether it's online on Facebook forums, in real life, just online in general, even here on YouTube, and that is the subject of safety. More specifically, do I feel safe as a solo female traveling? How do I stay safe as a solo female traveler? Do I get scared? What my fears are, and so on. So I figured I should start out by saying right off the bat that this is not going to be a fear-mongering type video. I'm not going to go into all the things that you could and should be scared of, all the potential dangers lurking around every corner. To be honest, statistically, as solo females, we're more likely to be hurt, injured, attacked, sick, in our own home base in a sticks and bricks type setting than we would be out on the road. So the purpose of this video is not to increase the fear or to make you scared of things that you might not have thought of yourself. Rather, I want to discuss with you all my 5, I guess that's technically 10, my 5 biggest fears that I personally experienced before starting out as a solo female traveler, and even when first starting out, and what I personally did to combat them and essentially overcome them so that they are not a significant part of my travel routine any longer. I mean, are they occasionally in the back of my head? Yes. Do I remain ultra aware of my surroundings at all time and realize the potential for illness, injury, car trouble, confrontations exist? Of course, I'm not naive. I know we don't live in a perfect world. I do feel much safer out in nature for the most part than I do in crowds these days. But again, the purpose of this video is to share with you my 5 top fears and how I overcame them, in the hopes that maybe it gives you some added confidence, a boost of self-esteem to realize that you don't maybe need to let certain fears hold you back either, and that there are ways you can overcome them or work on them to where you acknowledge them, but you don't let them stop you from doing what you want to do. So I think that was a long enough intro. I'm going to stop blabbing now and get into the meat and potatoes of the video. So let's start with number 1. My number 1 fear was, and still to some extent is, getting lost. I am the first to admit that even though I've made leaps and bounds of improvement and I am working on this on myself, I don't have the best sense of direction. So, naturally, when I started setting off into unfamiliar territory with myself as the navigator and no co-pilot other than my wonderful friend Smokey, I was a little worried I was going to be getting lost in the mountains somewhere, never to be seen again. So I looked into what I could do to prevent that from happening. I'm a big GPS girl. Greta is my gal. She's my Google Maps GPS that tells me where to go. But I do know that when service is spotty, or if you try to pull it up when you don't have good service, that it doesn't work for you sometimes. Or it can get rerouted, do wonky things, have glitches, etc. So I am going to go into more detail when I do a video showing my favorite apps on the road. But what I've done to counteract that is to make sure that I have an offline version of the area that I'm going to be exploring downloaded. I know a lot of people recommend having a paper map, and honestly, that's a great idea if you can read a paper map. I'm not ashamed to admit paper maps are not my jam. I like looking at them. I think they're fun to pore over, but I might as well be reading ancient Greek. So I need my GPS. I need my directions step by step telling me this is where you go next. So for me, the solution is download the map ahead of time. And for instance, when I went to the Smokies last fall, I didn't just download the area I was going to be immediately in. I expanded it, I think, all the way to Nashville on one side and Asheville on the other. And I wanted to make sure that the whole area I might potentially explore was included. And let me tell you, that saved my bacon. I can't tell you how many times once I was in the mountain and cell service dropped off, I would get done on a hike, get done exploring a new waterfall, get back to Tara, pull up my next destination, and get the little Google thing telling me that I was offline. Would I like to access my offline map instead? Boop, hit yes, and instantly it pulled up the information that I had downloaded ahead of time when I had service, and I was able to get going. And then, you know, as I would approach civilization again, my phone would beep and tell me that I was back online. But I never had to go with that panic of not being able to pull up where I am or where I'm going. So to me, now that I know how to do that, that's been a huge peace of mind. I know it's not foolproof. I know there's still a slight chance that it may fail me one day. But to be honest, even if I had a paper map on hand, I don't think that would be much more effective for me. I do pay really close attention when I'm going into a place so that I can hopefully retrace my steps without a map if need be. And I do continue to work on that, which I do think I'm improving. But that is how I overcame my fear of getting lost. Number one, check. All right, so number two kind of sort of goes hand in hand with number one, getting lost. And that is getting stuck or stranded in an unfamiliar area in the middle of nowhere and not being able to get out. Whether my vehicle is stuck in a ditch, oh my gosh, knock on wood, you know, something like that, and I'm literally stuck, or run out of gas, God forbid, and I'm in an unfamiliar area that's not a typical road AAA might service, you know, something like that. Just getting stuck or stranded without phone service, not being able to get in touch with anybody to ask for help, and not knowing where I am. That is where this little adorable and awesome safety feature comes in hand. It's the Garmin InReach Mini. There is a full-size version. There are all sorts of competitor options. I would encourage you to do your own research. I did do extensive research before finally deciding on this, and a lot of factors went into why I ended up choosing Garmin. One, I already use a Garmin watch, so I'm familiar with the interface. Two, I've heard that the GPS mapping system that they use for like EMS services is kind of the main one used by a lot of the park services and NASA and whatever else. I may be getting it mixed up in my head, but I did do the research ahead of time. I also wanted not just an emergency locator and, you know, sat device that could get assistance if ish went down and I needed rescued, which is very important to me, especially if I get hurt or injured in the middle of nowhere. I can't get back to other people. There's no way I can get out. I need someone to come get me. I don't know where I am. My phone's not working. This will come in clutch. Luckily, so far, I've only had to do test messages with my parents, but it does work, and it's really comforting to know when I get to a camp that has absolutely no cell service, and I'm not able to check in and say, hey, made it okay, or even just have the peace of mind of knowing that I can communicate with the outside world if I so choose, knowing that I can send just a text message and get that communication back is a huge peace of mind for me. I don't know why, but it's always been a big fear of mine to just be stranded in the middle of nowhere, not knowing where I am and not being able to reach anybody. I used to have nightmares of it back before I would even, oh, sorry, baby. Back before I would even hike and go on adventures, I would just have nightmares about being in the middle of nowhere and not being able to reach somebody. So my particular one does come with a monthly plan. I think it's $11.95, and it comes with the emergency services, the map pinging, the weather, and up to 10 free-form messages, as well as unlimited preset messages. So you can do like a certain amount of preset messages. You know, I'm going to stop blabbing about this. Comment below if you would like me to do a video dedicated to just this in and of itself, and whether or not it might be a good purchase for you. But you get the gist. I don't want to make this video too long talking about one thing. So that's how I overcame my fear of being stuck or stranded in the middle of nowhere with no service and nobody to contact. Number 3. These kind of all tie in together. Maybe it goes back to my klutzy nature. So my number 3 biggest fear is getting sick or injured when I'm by myself. You know, I do a lot of solo hiking, and while I'm as safe as possible, I'm also a little klutzy. I've been known to trip over a root or two. Anything can happen out on the trail, even when you're being careful. So, you know, I do worry about injuring myself if I'm alone or getting really sick when I'm on a road trip to where maybe I don't feel like I can safely drive, and maybe I feel like I need to get to medical care and can't get myself there. You know, those types of emergencies that are not likely but can arise. That is one of my fears. Again, there's not much you can do to prevent it. There's not much you can do to keep it from happening other than trying to stay healthy as possible and, you know, having preventative measures in place. I always stay well hydrated now so that I don't get sick from that, because I have had some instances in the past with elevation and just getting deathly ill and being basically an invalid for days. So I've learned my lesson there. I always advocate for being fully hydrated, especially if you're going to be going to a higher elevation than you're used to. Overhydrate. I have liquid IV with me in case I need a little boost of hydration. But lots and lots of water. Try to rest as much as possible before I can. Those types of things. I learned my lesson, and thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't experienced anything like that again. So I think I have successfully figured how to prevent that. But you know, things like the flu, viruses, 24-hour bug, food poisoning, again, injury. I take for granted when I'm at home base having a very good support system nearby, be it my parents, my kids and my ex-husband are close if there's an emergency. So I do have a support system near me should something go down and I need taken to the hospital, or I have to drop everything and, you know, need help getting daily function, you know, things done because I just can't do it myself if I'm sick, you know, things like that. So I would say that is the one thing that still is kind of like a little niggle in the back of my head when I'm out traveling, because again, there's really no way to fully prepare for something like that. Luckily, I personally don't travel with pets, so that is one less stressor I would have to worry about. I don't need to worry about what I would do with a dog or a cat with me. But I would still need to make plans for a car. If I was traveling within the state, I know that I could rely on my dad probably to come get my car, at least. But out of state, I would have to basically rely on AAA to tow me closer, or to at least get me to a hotel where I could recover enough to drive myself, you know, something like that. Maybe get an Uber somewhere, get my car towed to a safe spot. Those are the types of things I have kind of written into my contingency plan, but knock on wood, I hope I don't have to really encounter. I do have a pretty thorough first aid kit. I keep all of my medicines. I have, my insurance information. I have my doctor's information in case I need to reach them. So I'm as prepared as I can be for anything like that to happen as well. So there's only so much you can do in certain situations, but I feel like I've done enough to kind of put that in the back of my head and not really stress about it too much. Okay, that brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to number 4, which is car troubles. When I tell you that this is one of my biggest stressors before I got started, I am ashamed to admit my total lack of knowledge when it came to vehicle maintenance. I mean, I don't even want to put this out there to the public, but up until like a year ago, I couldn't even check my own air and my own tires and fill it if I needed to. So I've definitely been learning. My poor dad has tried over the years, ever since I was a kid, to get me to pay attention to learning how to change a spare tire, do the oil changes, and I just fought every step of the way. I really wish I could go back in time and soak up that knowledge now, but he is, now that I'm a much more willing participant and patient, he is teaching me these things now. So I do feel a lot more comfortable with the basics. I definitely check my tires every time before I leave. I can lower and increase the air as needed there. I am able to boost my battery, knock on wood, if I ever need to. I do have roadside emergency service through AAA. I would highly recommend upgrading to the Plus or the Premier. It's not much more for the year. I want to say 30 more for the Plus, and instead of a 5-mile tow, you get a 100-mile tow, which really adds up when you're paying per mile and you're not by your home base or by your mechanic. But definitely some type of emergency roadside service for sure. I will admit I am still not able to change my own tire, but that is next on my agenda of things to learn. I don't have a full-size spare anyways, and to be honest, if I was on the road, I probably would not opt to put the spare on, just because I can't get very far on it anyways, especially if I'm mostly doing highway or trying to get back home. So I would, in that case, likely get a tow and just get a new tire put on anyways. But I do feel that I'm about as prepared for roadside emergencies as I can be now as well. And with my AAA, that covers lockouts, battery replacement, anything like that in addition to tows. So I think I'm pretty well covered there. And that brings us to number 5, not 10, 5, which I think is what most people mean when they say, what are you scared of? Aren't you scared? When you're traveling as a solo female. And that's probably the most likely of the dangers, but it's the one that seems to stick in the forefront of most everyone's head, and that is the potential danger of an unwanted encounter, be it wildlife, human, an encounter with another being that you did not ask for, that you did not want to be put in a situation like that you have to deal with, whether it's confrontation, just an uncomfortable situation, a dangerous situation, whatever the case may be. That seems to be what most people think of when they think, are you scared to travel alone? To be honest, the reason I listed it as number 5 is it really is lowest on my list. I know statistically I'm more likely to get attacked or hassled running to my nearby grocery store after, dropping the kids off from school while they're eating dinner, or running to my bank down the street to go to the ATM, or, just getting smashed by somebody running a red light right down the street from my house. So I know that the chances of me facing an unwanted encounter with another being while I'm out on the road are next to nothing. Does that mean it's impossible? No. Does it mean that I should let my guard down and just say, statistically I'm fine, I don't need to worry about it, I'm just gonna live my life with blinders on? No. As anything, your number one line of defense should always be your own senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, just your sense of awareness. And when you're by yourself, that awareness should be heightened. You shouldn't be, going down the path, scrolling on your phone, checking the local news. You should be aware of wildlife around you, any noises that don't belong, smells, sights, anything that's kind of off. Just a heightened sense of awareness. So with that being said, I really think that that is the most important thing for completely avoiding any unwanted circumstances. I'm not going to get into what I personally use as personal protection for the most part, but I will say that for hiking, I highly recommend carrying bear spray. The majority of the trails that I hike have bears on them anyways, potentially. Here in Florida, when I go up to the Smokies or the Blue Ridge, the rest of the Blue Ridge. So it's not unheard of to have a bear encounter, although, to be honest, since I'm not in grizzly country, I don't actually ever see myself using this on a bear. But it's great against mountain lions, cougars, foxes, wild hogs, frisky coyotes that don't want to take no for an answer and run away. Any type of unwanted animal encounter where you feel your safety is being threatened, an animal's coming at you, you weren't able to successfully scare them off by making noise or backing away, and this is your line of defense. This does not just work against bears, although it's been proven extremely effective against them. It's a great wildlife attack deterrent, period. So, and not just of the four-legged variety. I honestly feel in my head I would be much more likely to use it against a two-legged attacker than a four-legged attacker anywhere out in nature, because I understand most of the Florida wildlife behavior and the wildlife behavior of the places that I'm visiting, to where I feel like I could probably minimize an attack unless it was like a surprise, like, oops, I startled a bear kind of a thing. That being said, I definitely do have this when I set out alone, because hiking alone is not always advised. They normally do advise you to hike in groups of 3 or more. But I do feel that with my first aid, my awareness, my safety devices, plenty of water, and my All Trails map downloaded of where I'm going to be hiking, I feel I'm as safe as I can be in that situation. So, and then when I'm in my van, I also have various self-defense tools and methods in place as well. So I feel like I've done a pretty good job of counteracting and overcoming any of the major fears or concerns I had before getting started. I did forget to show, when I was talking about car troubles, my car emergency kit, even though I did go into it some. I'm not gonna go into great detail. Again, I don't want this to drag on forever, but please go watch my video on Safety 101 and getting your own safety kit set up when you're done with this video, because I do think it's important to have that safety kit on hand when you set out on an adventure of your own. Okay, folks, there you have it. I have shared with you my 5 main fears when it comes to solo travel, or more specifically, solo female travel. And I hope that you found this video useful. I hope that you realize that even though it's perfectly normal to have such fears, there's a lot that we can do to put the power back in our hands and to be prepared, ready, and have everything that we need on hand to have a safe and memorable time when we're out exploring, so that we can do that as solo female travelers very safely and very well thought out, and it doesn't have to hold us back to not have somebody to adventure with. So I know I feel perfectly safe and excited when I head out on a solo adventure, and I have found this last year so enriching, and I'm so excited to see what the future holds with my future solo adventures. So with that being said, again, if you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you would do so. I have a lot of fun things coming up in the future, as well as more helpful tips. And I want to thank you, as always, for taking time out of your day to watch. I greatly appreciate, I can't talk today. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.